and welcome to Tender Loving Care with your host, myself, Pauline, and my darling Kate. Every week, Kate and I break down a show from the TLC network, the name of the network that I believe for the longest time stood for Tender Loving Care. When I found out that it actually stood for the Learning Channel and I saw the types of shows that are on that channel, my deep confusion bred this podcast. Each week, Kate and I will randomly select a show to cover for the next episode by spinning our beautiful wheel of shame, which has only the trashiest of trash, TLC and Discovery Plus shows that we will be studying. Hi, Kate.
Hello.
I've decided, Kate, I'm taking out trashiest of trash. These aren't trash shows. So, I mean, when we do get to shows where they are, eating like mattresses and stuff, that could be classified as trash. But, something like the show we're going to cover today, it's not trash, Kate.
No, it was not. It was a very intriguing documentary almost.
And spooky as well. So I am very grateful that you and I have been very steadfast that this month of October, we have been doing only spooky shows. We're doing a lot of spooky shows.
Yeah, we've very much kept on theme. I'm impressed with it. Yeah.
And I do want to, and on that, I do want to just say thank you to everyone that watched, subscribed, listened to, shared all of that, and got in touch with us about our latest episode that we released on Friday, where we interviewed Renee Watt, psychic medium and witch, and also Sister Wives lover. It was such a good show. We kind of broke down so many things about Sister Wives with Renee, and then she gave us a breakdown of the star signs, astrological signs of Cody and the gals. So it was such a good episode. We had some people reach out just to say, talk about the show. And some people actually asked us about, we'd referenced when we did the show with Renee, the breaking news that got Kate and I a lot of publicity and the podcast a lot of publicity. The beginning of this year, we had received some really big insider info about Sister Wives, about this season. And we got some messages from listeners asking about where they could find that particular episode. So Kate and I re-released it. So last week, Kate, I think we released like 7 episodes last week.
We did. It was a lot of content for you guys, but it was important because we had a lot of Sister Wives things to share.
It's important work that we do.
Yeah.
Never forget, important work. Speaking of important work, Kate, I realized that I don't think we have spoken to the listeners before we get into Paranormal Emergency, our show this week, that we haven't really spoken to the listeners about our YouTube channel. Do you want to some of you are watching us right now on YouTube, but otherwise for our listeners, do you kind of want to talk to them about it?
Yeah. So I have been uploading our episodes, the video version. Polly and I upgraded our camera situation a little bit, so it's a better viewing experience. And you can search for us on YouTube, Tender Loving Care Podcast. And you'll find our channel. You'll recognize the branding. It looks just like our podcast cover on all the, Spotify and everything. And on there, you can actually watch us talk about these shows. So you can see all of our beautiful facial expressions as we roll our eyes at 90 Day Fiance people and things like that. So go check it out, subscribe, all that good stuff, and enjoy.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of stuff coming up on YouTube. It's just nice to have another way to interact with people. So please like, watch, comment, things like that. And on YouTube, it's going to be nice because we're going to get the opportunity to do live stuff on YouTube as well. So be sure that you sign up and hit the bell too. Isn't that what the YouTubers say? They say, come on, hit the bell or hit the notification. I don't know. We'll become YouTubers soon enough. Don't worry, guys, soon enough. But just do all of that stuff. Yes. In the meantime, Kate, why don't you talk about our show this week?
Yes. So as Polly said, our shows this month have all been spooky for October. And this was no exception. We got from the Wheel of Shame last week a show called Paranormal Emergency. Came out in 2019. There's 1 season so far. This is how they describe it on Discovery Plus. Police officers, paramedics, and other first responders reveal their true life encounters with the paranormal while on duty.
Now, I already knew this was going to be some reenactment, which love. Kate and I always love a reenactment. TLC reenactments are the best. I kind of went through them to pick one that I thought was going to be really good. I didn't feel, Kate, that I wanted to do UFOs because I wanted to do with spooky season, even though UFOs are spooky for some people, I wanted it to be ghosts after death, you know, poltergeists. I wanted that kind of vibe. So I picked of season 1, episode 7, entitled "The Devil Can Do Bad Things." So it kind of it breaks down a couple of different instances or accounts in each episode. So we had 3 in this one, 2 of them in Pennsylvania, by the way.
I know. I was like, is this a Pennsylvania-based show?
That's what I was thinking. Is this just going to be all paranormal stuff from Pennsylvania? I mean, the alliteration I love, but I just didn't know. It was so strange. So we got three accounts here of what happened. So I went into this thinking this show could be an absolute disaster if it is just going to be all reenactments, and it's like go back to something like an epic show like Finding Bigfoot, when it's just a constant, did you see that? Did you hear this? But Kate, I was pleasantly surprised.
I was too. When we watch these reenactment shows, guys, it's like we never know how goofy it's going to be or how serious it's going to be because it really, there's a range. It's like we watched a show, my fat sent me to the ER, and
Outstanding
programming.
television.
But it was on the goofy side. Even when it was really scary things that happened, it was the music and the accounts of everyone was laughing about what happened to them. And so I wasn't sure if it was going to be silly, serious. It was pretty serious, and it was very interesting and spooky.
It really was a spooky show. Yeah. So the first one takes place in Scranton, Pennsylvania, which most people know, obviously, for The Office, which, of course, The Office is known in America because of Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant. Ricky Gervais being from Reading in England, who wrote the original Office, just to put it in there, obviously, every time.
It's also the hometown of Joe Biden, I will say.
Secondary to any relation to Ricky Gervais, but there we go. But good. But thank you for that political input, Kate. I do appreciate that.
Yes.
So we meet Riley Black, who is or was a paramedic. Yeah, this sent a little shiver down my spine, this one. So Riley is talking to us about, this was in 2002. She's retired now. She's a woman that's probably only in her 40s, but we find out what she retired to become, which was equally as interesting. The first couple of lines of her introduction, so what we have is we have the reenactment and then we have the one-on-one interviews with them. But the first couple of lines, I was like, ew. She was like, yeah, you know, it's very hard. Some of the things we see as paramedics are incredibly hard. So we distance ourselves and, you know, quote, try to laugh it off. Riley, I don't know if that's exactly what I'd want to hear if my loved one was just in a horrific accident, but whatever you need to do, Riles, whatever you need to do, Riles. Talks about Scranton a little bit. And she says, you know, we were doing the downtown area and you're driving around. And I mean, first of all, I will say that I had no idea about and if you're a listener and you are a paramedic or EMS, I know there is a differentiation between them, I believe. It may be paramedic and something else. I'm sorry, I'm sounding really uneducated here on this, but I want to mention it because I had spoken to somebody who was they worked EMS, I think, but they weren't a paramedic. And they dealt with, I mean, they were doing 24-hour shifts, obviously dealing with very traumatic things, going into people's homes, car accidents, really, really terrible things. And they are paid pennies. I couldn't believe it. This person I was talking to also had a job at Starbucks. She was like, I have to work at Starbucks.
Oh,
to make my rent and to help with university. But they were going out to emergency situations, but they needed a second job. I thought that was really shocking.
that is shocking. I just looked it up so we can set the
Be
record straight.
accurate.
So, EMTs are entry level EMS workers trained to
EMT.
provide basic life support of patients, and they work alongside paramedics in emergency situations. EMTs can give
Oh,
CPR, administer glucose for diabetic patients, give oxygen, bandage wounds, and assist. Paramedics are the ones doing more advanced procedures. So it's like EMT,
got it.
EMS, paramedic.
Got it. So it was an
Yeah.
EMT that I was speaking to, and I was really flabbergasted when she told me. And she
Yeah.
said, yeah, the whole training took like 6 weeks. It was, I don't know, it was very, and they worked so hard. Anyway, Riley was paramedic.
Yeah.
And it's 2002, and she said we were working downtown, and shifts are crazy. It was middle of the night. It was about 1:30, and they pulled over, and her colleague said, I'm going to go and get some coffees. You hang out here. And she said, I went to go make a phone call outside of the van, outside of the truck. Yeah. And she said, I was outside making a phone call, and I looked up, and there was a bar that was kind of nearby, and it was known to be a really sketchy bar. There was gang violence there. And she said, if you're looking for trouble in Scranton, that's where you're gonna find it. I liked that line a lot, Kate.
I did too. I wonder if maybe there's a writer on set who's like kind of punching up their
Well, I didn't want to admit it here, but I am very proud to put that on my resume. So she said she's making a phone call, and she starts to see at this bar there's just this fight that starts breaking out, and she says it all happened so quickly that it became like a brawl, a full-on brawl. Men were coming out, women were coming out, and they were just fighting each other. And then someone pulled out a gun, and she said the way it was kind of shown in the an act that this man shot another man, then went over and shot him again in the head. It was really violent. So she said it was so intense, the gunfire, that she could hear the bullets going by. So she ran behind her truck, her paramedic truck, and she could hear the bullets hitting like the walls and the establishment. It was really frightening. So she, I didn't want to get hit. The guy was shot. I think it kind of dispersed. She grabbed her things because you have tunnel vision, and I just ran to go and help him. So she said, I knew with a head injury that it was minutes, or
right.
maybe less than minutes. It was vital for me to get in there. She said, so I started doing CPR on him. She said I was practically on top of him on his chest. And she explains that, people were all standing around because people had come out, heard the guns, there's people spilling out of this pub. And she said it was people were screaming at me, fix him, do this, what's going on, all of this stuff, all this noise. And she said, just let me get on with my job, let me do my job. She said, and then it was as though a needle on a record like was lifted off, and everything just went dead silent, completely silent. And she's working on this man, and she looks up, and there's people surrounding her and the body. And between their legs, she sees on the ground, on all fours, like an animal, the man that she's working on, just staring at her. And this is like shivers down her spine. And she says, I couldn't understand what I was looking at. I was thinking, is this a twin? But he was on all fours staring at her. And she said he was looking at me, and I was staring at him and then staring at the body. And I looked back at the body, and the body's eyes were wide open. And when I'd started working on him after he'd been shot, they were closed. But I was looking at this figure in front of me as clearly as this person that I was working on was looking at me. And he was on all fours, staring at me as though he was trying to understand what was happening. He didn't understand that he died. That's what her perception was of this. And she said, and I'm working on him and working on him, and I'm staring at this figure, and I don't know, I can't understand what's going on. And then her partner comes in with the defibrillator, and she says, then it was as though the needle was put back on the record again, and the music all started up, and he vanished, and the man was pronounced dead.
Right.
I mean, that is something. And she made such a good point. She said it's when you go through something, a paranormal experience, and especially in her line of work and how that happened, she says, I would be so quickly dismissed. You just saw a very traumatic incident. You saw a man get shot in the head. You were a victim of like gunfire. You saw this brawl break out. You're a paramedic under a massive amount of stress. You've probably seen too much and you need a break. She said, so I didn't tell anyone because nobody would believe me. But she says, I know as clearly as I'm here today that he was staring at me as I was trying to bring him back to life, but he died.
It was wild. And this incident then led to her leaving the medical field completely, and she became a spiritual healer after that.
That came out of left field. Because
Right.
it said retired, and she said, I left it. And you just think, oh, okay. But she left it to, but yeah, like you say, to become a spiritual healer. She says, I deal with people that have gone through situations like this. And she says, I thank him because he helped me kind of see this different side and has led me to what I do now. I mean, it was wild.
It completely changed the course of her life. And I can imagine that when she was still working that job after that, she probably just never knew when something, now that that floodgate had been open, she probably was always wondering, like, is something else going to happen? And so she wanted to be working in the spiritual realm with people so that she didn't have to hide it or, not talk about it.
It's true.
Yeah.
When you see something so clearly that you cannot explain, it changes everything. It changes your life. You will never witness or observe things the same way again, because it's as though you are given a knowledge, you are given a new fresh book of rules of what life is, so you can never go back again. And that was definitely the case with her. Really interesting. That gave me a shiver.
Yeah, that was a really sad and powerful story. Okay, so moving on to the second story that we're
Yes.
told.
Do the
So
next one, Kate.
this is also in Pennsylvania, as we said, Stroudsburg or something. It's a small yet lively town, and we meet a police sergeant, Walbert. And he tells this story about how it was earlier in his career. It was in 1983. Him and his partner got called to a house because there were a bunch of water leaks going on. So they get into the house. The husband and wife are there, and they're like, none of the pipes, all this leaking stuff is happening in the front of the house. And they explain that there are no pipes up there. All the pipes are in the back of the house where, the bathrooms are and everything. And it just doesn't make any sense. And they're really confused. Obviously, they like inspect the house and try to find a reason why this would be happening. They can't figure it out. And not only that, the water droplets are not only falling in the usual way that you observe that, they are also moving horizontally through the air as if they're on a taut line, like a bullet moving through the air, but it's water droplets. And they have no idea what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, these two police officers said that you would watch, they went to this couple in this house who were completely distraught. They were saying there's water leaking. They said, fine, well, it's pipe burst. There's no pipes in the ceiling. Okay, well, it's coming in from somewhere. It's just dropping on us from the ceiling. Then they just turn around and they see a water droplet in front of them just stop mid-air and then move horizontally. And when you see something like that, you're watching something that defies physics and science, and you can't really understand what's taking place. So these two very seasoned officers were just thinking, this can't be happening. And then, Kate, they notice someone else in the room.
Yes, it is not just this couple that's in the room. They look over and kind of follow the line of where the water is going. And there's a man sitting on the couch across the room, and he's staring off into space. And they're kind of like, who's that? And the couple says that this is their friend who is actually on furlough from prison for his grandfather's funeral. And so they are letting him stay with them while he, attends the funeral. And so they go over there, and they said he was almost in a trance. He's really out of it. And um, he is saying that it's his grandpa who is causing this water. And
Yeah.
they're kind of just like, okay, well, we'll go tell the police chief about this, but there's no criminal activity going on here. There's not much we can do. And
Yeah.
so they leave.
Mm-hmm.
And the chief says he agrees. He's like, well, it's not a police matter, so we're not going to make a deal of it. Like, let's move on. So
Mm-hmm.
then later that night, in the wee hours of the morning, the couple calls the police station freaking out, and they want the same officer to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And they say there's a lot more stuff going on and they need help. And so the same police officers, they go back, and they are told that their visitor, this man named Don, he was washing his hands in the bathroom, and they hear this big crash, and something had hit him and knocked him against the wall. And when they went into the bathroom to see if he was okay, he had scratches on his face and on the back of his hand. And he was saying it was his grandpa that did it. And then they witnessed him apparently levitate off the ground and then get thrown across the room by something they could not see.
Yeah. Yeah. They also revealed that this man, his name's Don Decker, had a very bad relationship with his father, a grandfather that he was out for this funeral. He said that the grandfather was supposedly very abusive and had abused his grandson. And they said that Don he'd been in county jail. It wasn't prison, it was
Oh,
county
right.
jail. Yeah.
Right.
So it wasn't
Right.
as extreme. And it was for receiving stolen goods,
Right.
which probably now I doubt they'd even put you in prison for or jail for, but then they did. So he was released, and they said that they saw the scratches on his face, that he levitated, he was thrown back across his bathroom. Um, and then the rain, the water was still coming in this living room. They go downstairs, and the female of this couple decided something has to happen. So she grabs the Bible and she starts a semi kind of exorcism or doing something to protect themselves. And so she starts reading from the Bible, and the rain was pelting, that these officers are saying the rain was pelting directly onto the Bible, that it was making noises as it touched the Bible. So I'm watching this, Kate, and I'm thinking, I know this story. And it was going on and on. And I was like, I know this story. So to conclude it, essentially they keep repeating these things. And I think something happened with her while she's reading from the Bible, right?
Um, I just have written down that she was like getting pelted really hard by the
Yeah.
water. It was like targeting her. And
Yeah.
they asked the officers, what should we do? And the officers said, get the hell out of here, like leave. And they're like, no, we can't leave Don. And so they stay there with him, and he returns to jail the next morning, and all of the supernatural activity ceased at the house. But then it starts happening at the jail where he is now, and they have a priest perform an exorcism on him at the jail.
Yeah.
And then that apparently made his grandfather's spirit leave.
Yeah. And I watch all of this and I'm thinking, I definitely know this case. I know this story. So I do some research and I realize if you guys are listening to this, you may have heard of this as well. It was originally, I knew this from Unsolved Mysteries, classic, amazing TV show, American TV show that ran through, I think, 80s, 90s, something like that. I remember hearing about this on here. So I start just Googling some stories about it. And Don Decker this whole incident was apparently one of the most well-reported poltergeist instances in American history, because they had so many police officers and people that weren't involved backing up exactly what happened that could never be explained. And this article, Meet Don Decker, the US man who could make it rain wherever he went in the 1980s, it happened to him a lot. And this grandfather was supposedly a very dark entity. And Don claims that he had been very abusive towards him. And Don was released from county jail for this funeral, and there was a lot of agitation around Don because people were expressing all this sympathy for this man that Don knew was very, very unwell and had done something very evil to him. But the grandfather was named James Kisher, I think that's how it's pronounced. I don't know how to pronounce that properly. And he was abused at the hands of his grandfather as a child. He was released for the funeral, and it went on. I mean, all of this has been reported numerous times. If you Google Don Decker, you'll see it. It's all over. There were deep claw marks all in his forearm. The police saw all of this. The police stood and witnessed all of this inexplicable water falling. He went to jail and he was sat in a jail cell and it was pouring from the jail cell on top of him. It really, really is a very, very strange circumstance. There's also an incident with the crucifix. They get a crucifix out. So this was a big Catholic area, and they get a crucifix out for him, and it was burning on him. I mean, so many things happened to this guy that he was very, very well known. He's still alive today. But go and Google him, Don Decker. It was one of the most highly publicized poltergeist cases in America.
Wow. I'm so glad that they called the police just to have someone there to witness this. And,
absolutely,
because now there's no one that can say they're just making it all up. And
mm-hmm.
Well, plus the fact that when he left, it was still happening wherever he went. But yeah, that is wild. Wow.
I know. It was really crazy. So we get one more story.
Mm-hmm.
And look, we leave Pennsylvania. And we go over to the other side of the country. We come to Fairfield, California. And this is to deal with a coroner. So we meet John Prink, who is a coroner. Now, this has always really, really confused me. And I had to Google to understand what I was talking about. Coroners, as far as I knew, a coroner is not a pathologist, but a coroner is somebody that will deal with the body of a deceased person, bring them to the morgue, and help, I believe, assist in autopsies, assist in moving the body and assessing time of death, nature of death, reporting from the crime scene, and a lot of biological and chemistry kind of based functions and reasoning to explain the death. And John Prink starts by explaining, I was a cop and I became a coroner. And I'm like, I thought coroners were MDs. So I go on to Google a coroner, and it is very bizarre how you can become a coroner in this country. It differs from state to state, but you do not have to have any medical background to become a coroner. You can be elected as a coroner in some counties, and that's obviously what happened with John Prink. It can be somebody that is like that, like a small town, and it's a police officer, and you get elected as the coroner, and it means you go out to accident sites, to sites of deaths with unexplained deaths, and you assist and analyze the body, you analyze the death scene, and you bring the body to the morgue. I personally was so shocked by that. You don't need in some cases, not all, in some cases you don't even need a degree to be somebody that would be a coroner. It was crazy for me anyway. Very strange.
That is surprising. I was wondering about his position because he said it was coroner investigator. And
Yeah.
I thought, how does one get into that? So that's
I mean, he's
shocking.
not performing an autopsy or a medical examination, but he is dealing with crime scenes.
Yep.
But he doesn't have a background. Well, I mean, he has a. Anyway, that was just a side note that I was really interested by. So he said he was on call and it was at 3 a.m., the witching hour. And he was called to a scene of a deadly car accident because it was an area in California where a lot of people commute and work into San Francisco and Sacramento. So there was a lot of car crashes, unfortunately. So he gets called to this site of a deadly car accident. The car was completely totaled, he said, and the man behind the wheel was deceased. He had massive head trauma. He had trauma in his torso. And so it was his job to deliver the body back to the morgue, tag and bag, he says. So you put tags on them, you get the body back to the morgue, and then he says the final thing is you take off all their personal belongings. I mean, it's so traumatic just to think of dealing with something like this. So you get rid of all of that. By the way, once again, he's dealing with the body where there could have been a crime committed. I don't know. I find it all really strange that a coroner can just be someone elected. Anyway, takes up all the personal belongings. He goes, and then the worst part of it is that we have to notify the next of kin. So he said he called the family, and as soon as he put the phone down, he says, I felt something in the room. And he said, he explained it in a manner that we can all understand, that doesn't necessarily have to be paranormal. It's like when you're in a coffee shop and someone walks up behind you, you feel it. It's just an extra sensory that we have, that you feel someone around you. And he was completely alone. He says it was 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, and it's like a museum there. There's nobody there. And he says, I felt someone standing beside me. So I got up, he said, and then I was being watched. You just feel it. Someone was watching you. Then he went down the corridor and in past the door that had a big window in it, into the room where this body was. And he said he came face to face and was staring at an apparition. And it was a 6 foot plus apparition. And he said, I was just staring at him and he was staring back at me. And he says, in your head, you're trying to rationalize what's going on. It's my reflection in the window that I'm seeing. That's what I'm seeing right now. But you stare harder and it isn't you. And he said, it was the man that I had just brought in. And he was stood there staring at me. He says, so I open the door and I go in and I take down the zipper of the bag that the body was contained in, and I check that this man's dead. And he absolutely was dead. And I'm sure he hightailed it out of there. But he says it's just a case of seeing something that your brain is trying to, you're going through everything in these milliseconds of just trying to think, no, it's because this is what I'm saying. No, this is what I'm saying. No, this is what this is, and it's not what you're seeing. He says it couldn't be explained. I was staring at an apparition of someone that had just come in that was deceased. And he says, I believe that when there's a sudden death, they don't have, you don't realize you've passed. And he says, I think a lot of spirits present themselves to try and understand, well, where did I go? I was just alive. where am I now? And I think they seek that help from the living. And that's what he thinks he experienced that night.
Oh, I have goosebumps all over my body. Yeah, it's something that he said they have no training for these paranormal experiences. And he said that he'd heard from some of his colleagues about stuff like this happening. And um, I'm sure there are so many stories. If anyone listening has worked in this role and has
Oh,
stories, please reach out, tenderlivingcarepod at
love
gmail.com.
we would love to hear from you guys. You can, yeah, Instagram Tender Loving Care Podcast, or email us at tenderlovingcarepod at gmail.com. I would love to hear your stories.
I'm sure there are many.
Mm.
But yeah, that made me so sad what he said about the idea that the spirits are confused or they don't feel ready to go, and so they're looking to you. And oh, it's just so sad.
It makes so much sense. I mean, these sudden deaths, you're here in a second, a split second of something that can happen, whether a building collapses, a earthquake takes place, a car hits you, it's over. It's done in a second. And then if you believe what he was saying, and you believe in the afterlife, and you believe in your spirit continuing, your spirit is there and it's been transformed and taken out of the body, and you don't have a minute to understand whatever happened to you. You can't just go back to your human life again. You're gone. It's deeply, deeply troubling. So this show, I mean, what did you think of it, Kate?
I really liked it, even though a lot of the parts were disturbing or spooky or scary. I found myself wanting to watch more of these episodes because the stories were so intriguing, and I just wanted more. But some of the some of the episodes, the image for the episodes were really freaking me out. The one after this is very scary looking. So I might have to pick and choose. But yeah, I really like this show. We rate each show that we watch for our Wednesday episodes on a scale of 0 to 600. We got that number from one of the network's most popular shows, My 600-Pound Life. So we have a wide range to rate it on. I would rate this. I want to say just 600. Like, I really liked it. I got,
Good,
or maybe
good.
like 550. Like, I thought it was good. What
Yeah.
about you?
I'm gonna give it 500. I think that I definitely want to watch more. I want to see more of these episodes. And I just like that there are, people that deal in science and facts, especially, police officers that have to be so particular about what's going on and reporting on exactly what they're seeing, to talk about something like this that's so otherworldly. It was brilliant. I loved it. So yeah, I'm going to give Paranormal Emergency 500 points. And guys, you can, £500, sorry, and you guys can go find that on the ID channel, Discovery, whatever kind of app you have. You can download Discovery and check it out. It was good. It was good. It's very good for this time of year as well, because we've got Halloween is approaching. So I think it's a good show to watch for the next couple of weeks as we get into Halloween. All right, so that was that for this week. So it means that we need to head over to get another show from our Wheel of Shame. So guys, let's head on over to our Wheel of Shame. Our Wheel of Shame. Guys, it's so fabulous. We are going through the Wheel of Shame. As I've said before, I definitely need to be adding to this. I mean, luckily, we do know that TLC just greenlights every show that anybody comes to them with. Kate and I are in the process of pitching many a show. We just need them to greenlight it. So before you know it, Kate and I will have our own show about two podcasters wandering America, trying to find What could we find, Kate? Maybe we could do a podcast within a podcast. I don't know. Whatever it is, guys, we're going to end up on TLC. So fingers crossed. Just keep those things. And we'll be paid $2 for it. $2. All right. Kate, are you ready to I want another spooky show. What are you feeling?
I could go spooky again. I could go silly relationship type stuff. But yeah, spooky would be fitting. We're still in the Halloween season.
We are. So let's get going. We're going to spin this. 3, 2, 1. Spin. All right, it's going. It's going to find us a goodie. Come on, Wheel of Shame. Come on, Wheel of Shame. Come on. Oh! Kate.
What is it?
We asked the Wheel of Shame. Now, the Wheel of Shame giveth, and the Wheel of Shame taketh. Sometimes it's given us some things that Kate and I didn't want to do, but we knew we had to do them. Then we're in spooky season, and we want to kind of wrap up spooky season for now, even though spooky season is all year long for me. But if with something that would be on theme, and this is a show that it landed on that we actually added recently because it was so spooky: Vampires in America.
No way. Oh my gosh.
We landed on Vampires in America. We have done UFOs. We have done ghosts. We have done poltergeists. We have done everything. True crime killers. We've done everything. And we were just missing these. And this is the show. It's called Vampires in America. And if you know my association with these, there is a monstrous amount of fear there. So this is perfect for next week. We're getting into Halloween week. It is perfect. Vampires in America, guys.
And by America, they do mean Arizona.
Yeah.
It's all in Arizona. I just looked. That's funny.
I am so excited. I don't even
Yeah.
I remember you picking this and telling us to put it on there. I can't remember the exact intricacies of it, but I know it's going to be amazing. And we're going to learn about true V's, because guys, guess what? V's do exist. They really do.
Agreed.
Right. Agreed. No, actually, guys, we should let you know. So this week, this is weird as well, we have for our Patreon members, our subscriber members, if you want to become a subscriber, dead easy, go into your feed right now, click on one of the episodes that has a lock next to it, sign up, $5 a month, $5 a month to get extra content from us. Extra content is twice a month. We are going to do a full episode where we dive into the weird, wonderful, strange, bizarre documentaries. And this week we are releasing our episode in which we cover the vampire killings, which is Rod Ferrell in 1995 murdered along with his coven of vampires. So it's going to be a doozy. It's a documentary you can find for free on YouTube. We will put the link in our Instagram, Tens of Loving Care podcast. You can go and watch it on YouTube, then sign up for $5 a month, and you will be able to listen along as we talk about this documentary, which is insane. So it's true crime mixed with vampires, mixed with paranormal, and then we get this show for next week as well. So we got a lot going on, Kay.
We do. Follow us on all our socials. Tender Loving Care Podcast is our handle on TikTok and Instagram. We kind of abandoned X because who's on there anymore? No one.
I don't know.
Unclear. And like I said before, go find us on YouTube if you want to see video versions of the podcast, and subscribe to us there. And tell a friend about the show. That's one of the best, easiest ways that we can grow, is for you to just spread the word.
It is. And I would also like to just say this is coming out on Wednesday the 25th, which is the very, very, very first birthday of Miss Millie Snell, my best friend in England's gorgeous, darling angel baby. So I want to say a massive happy birthday and dedicate this show to Millie Snell. And I also just want to show you what I have next to me as I record. That is something, Millie, as you grow older and you listen to this, as this is probably going to be archived, obviously in halls of fame, this podcast. But this is what your mother gave me, photo of herself for one of my Christmases. So if you're on YouTube, you'll be able to go and check this out. But this is your mother. So yeah, guys, if you're listening to this, go to YouTube and check out what I'm showing the camera right now, because this is Millie's mother and a hideous thing that she sent me for Christmas one year. But she gave birth to you, so I love her. So Katie and Adam, I love you. Millie, I love you. And happy birthday, sweet darling angel Millie. Mwah! Love you.
Yes, happy birthday. Oh, that's so amazing.
All right, guys, we will see you soon. We will be back on Friday to talk more vampires, more killing, and more Bravo. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Bye-bye.
Bye.